under 500 million and perpetual balance with nature. Some of the other things it says on the guidestones: guide reproduction wisely. So doesn't that kind of sound like China with the whole one-child policy thing? Improving fitness and diversity, unite humanity with a living new language. So that's kind of weird, unite humanity with a living new language. What is a new language? Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason.
Almost sounds like a philosophy.
It does.
Metaphorically speaking.
It does. It's creepy. I probably should have wrote down some of the Georgia Guidestones things other than it, but yeah, it says right here, the message of the Georgia Guidestones seems to call for at least 90% of the Earth's population to be wiped out. The passage about maintaining humanity at a population of 500 million or less would require a massive dying off of humanity, the likes of which we've never seen. Now, guys, before we move on, I also want to point out, like I said, I've known about the Georgia Guidestones for a while, being a truth seeker. But another thing that I've known about for a while are something called FEMA camps and FEMA plastic coffins. Now, some of the first videos surfaced 11 years ago in Texas of these plastic coffins. They're like 7 feet long and like 3 people deep. Unfortunately, this is an audio podcast, so I really can't show you. But if you go to YouTube and you type in FEMA plastic coffins, you will find videos from 11 years ago. You'll find videos from 5 years ago. From, I think, Madison, Georgia. I think you'll find one in Texas. They look exactly like coffins. There's no really description as to what they are, and they've been shipped here. And I think that one of them was on FEMA grounds. So and then also I don't know if y'all have heard about this. Once again, something I've known about for a while: the Walmart closings. There have been random Walmart closings around the country where it's like you can even see it's on the mainstream news. On one of them, they're talking about how like this Walmart was the busiest one in this town, and then it randomly closed down, supposedly because of plumbing issues, or they couldn't get their plumbing permit. One of the employees from the Walmart, or the manager, said they've never seen a plumber in there in their entire time of working there. So once again, this being an audio podcast is something you're gonna have to look up yourself. But if you type in Walmart FEMA camps, now what FEMA stands for is Federal Emergency, Federal Emergency something, let's see, acronym. See what it stands for. Federal Emergency Management Agency. So when I was talking about the whole connect the dots thing, I remember these videos from 5-10 years ago, and I remember the Georgia Guidestones from just looking up, other things. If you could, and then also you can find videos of people like Bill Gates talking about reducing the population. Now, before you say, "Oh my God, he's going off the deep end," like I said earlier, this is all speculation. But when you combine all the when you connect the dots, it seems a little weird that there's these plastic coffins, that there are these guidestones by the New World Order basically showing a way to control humanity, talking about how you have to control religion and all that stuff and decrease the population by 500 or keep it at 500 million. And then you have, I don't know if I already said, the camps, the closed down Walmarts that have barbed wire on top of them. They have barbed wire facing in, essentially, so people can't get out. It's like they're they were preparing for something like years ago with these coffins and with these Walmarts. It was like they were getting ready for some sort of emergency thing that was going to go on. And so when I first started hearing about the coronavirus, this was the first thing that came to mind, was the videos of those plastic coffins, the Georgia Guidestones, the whole population control thing. It's weird, man. It's weird timing, in my opinion.
But it actually, the timing seems just right if you look at the situation going on just recently in China with all their weekend riots every week. And on top of that, not to mention that theory that somebody else, don't take me for this, but somebody else coined this theory. But Kim Jong-un mentioned that Kim Jong-un of North Korea mentioned we had a Christmas present waiting for us. And that's a possibility. This could have been, if he worked in cahoots with China. And, they're both communist countries, and I wouldn't want to live in either one of them. Thank God I was blessed to be born in the USA. And,
America.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, dude, I'm glad that you told me about that. I'm glad that you have that information to share with people, because I didn't know that Kim Jong-un said that, there's a Christmas present for America, United States of America. Now, like I said, January 22nd is when, I forget her name, but the lady went on TV and was the government finally admitted that there was something going on in Wuhan. There was something going on in China. Now, Christmas...
That's like 2 weeks.
Yeah, Christmas... And they were saying that there was there was weird shit going on before the 22nd. So if Christmas is on the 24th, 25th, that's like you said, within like 2 weeks, and then they finally had to like start talking about it. So that's kind of weird, man. It's a little bit weird.
Yeah, and another reason why I'm glad I live in the USA, since we're on the topic of North Korea and China. North Korean Kim Jong-un, he had one of his own people executed. And that's no surprise. I mean, he had his brother executed. He had, I believe, a brother-in-law or something. One of his wives even went missing for many years, and she hadn't come up since. So there's a suspicion about that, her whereabouts. But, he had a man executed because the man was told to stay in his home. And unfortunately, if you live in a communist country, you do something rebellious, like, something that we take for granted over here, or a lot of times we don't realize and take for granted over here in America. You do that over there, well, this is what happened. The man walks out of his house, he disobeyed the order, and he was executed.
Yeah, I could totally see that coming from a what I like to call a totalitarian communist regime. Once again, the communism that we see in the modern day world is not the communism that was spoke about by Karl Marx and Frederick Engels in the Communist Manifesto. However, that might have been more or less like a optimistic fantasy. After reading the book, I came to the conclusion that human nature is greedy ultimately. So to have like some sort of utopian situation where like our tax money goes to a communist government, that essentially what that means is to provide public services for people, just like roads, the military, schools, all these things that are a public shared service. That's the whole idea of what Karl Marx was talking about, was having these things that people could share, and also the working class rising up against the bourgeoisie, the ruling class. But anyways, I digress. So we've had all these weird we've had all these closed downs. Not only schools, Disney World shut down, the NBA, they're not having anyone for March Madness. I think someone told me, I'm not a sports guy.
Oh, I was going to point out they cutting cinemas in half, like as far as the amount of people that can go in a cinema. That's part of the whole separation distancing that we're trying to implement everywhere, so that you can do everything you can to keep from spreading it, or somebody who might have it spreading it to you.
Right here it says Airbnb, talks about it. So yeah, we had Disney World, we had the NBA, I think the NHL did close something, Broadway closed down. Here we had, I think, King's Dominion, I think it was an amusement park, closed down. So we're having all these things closed down, which affects our economy. I also learned that 97% of the world's antibiotics and stuff comes from China, on top of all the other material that comes from China, which I think this should kind of be an awakening, to show us, hey, we need to start producing our own stuff, because we can't rely on another country to have all of the things that we need. That is just silly. So I think this is time for us to really to relook at that. When you see things like this that say USA Today, coronavirus live updates 1 hour ago, U.S. death toll rises to 62, no school for millions, chaos ensues or whatever. Like we started this podcast saying, it's not about you or I getting it. It's about the effects of the chaos and the fear. And it's no secret that the media promotes fear. People.
Not to mention the economy. China's getting their last laugh right now.
Well, probably, but as far as their PR is probably terrible right now. Their public relation, because all the countries are probably hating China right now, at least, behind closed doors. Italy, what did Italy close?
They've had over, I believe the number today was 2,157 deaths, or cases rather, in Italy, and over 200 deaths.
2,000?
Yeah, 2,157 cases That was this morning, in just Italy alone, and they had over 200 deaths. And that made me ponder. Well, maybe it's because Italians and their culture typically kiss each other instead of the common handshake we do over here. But then after speaking to my father, he mentioned the fact that they're so densely populated, and their relevance to the proximity to China and a few other factors and variables involved play a significant factor in reason why they have such a horrible. They're having a bad case of this over there.
So keep in mind, guys. I keep feel like I'm beating the dead horse at this point, but it's not about you or I getting it, and that's why they're like, oh, I'm tired about hearing it. People are overreacting. It's not about us getting sick and dying. It's about the economy being affected. Not to mention, I actually hadn't had enough time to research this. I'd seen a brief post about something like $50 billion that the government's getting to research like a cure for it, which is good, but I'm just saying, let's play devil's advocate. Let's say hypothetically this was a mutation that was released by the Chinese or another government or regime. If it was something that was released onto the world, then this is just like a big tax scam, essentially. Assuming that we don't already know the cure. Now, that could be completely possible. We could possibly really not know about it. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying, if there, I don't know what the number was, but if it was like $500 billion or $50 billion that the government's getting to research this vaccine, you got to really question like where that money is going to. Also, it was a few days ago, there was a 30-day travel ban to Europe. I'm pretty sure here in America. So that's what I'm saying, guys. Keep in mind all this shit. It's not about you and I getting it. It's about how it's going to affect everything around us. And it's about how it's all like fear-based and all this shit. People are going crazy, man. People are buying up toilet paper here. Like, you can't get, toilet paper. Oh, I just farted. Oh, God. Speaking of toilet paper. I might have some
timing.
I might have some, yeah. Hell yeah. I might have some coronavirus going on in my asshole. But oh God, it stinks too. And we got the door shut. Hold your breath. We need some masks.
Yeah.
We need some masks. Oh God. It's getting worse and worse. I'm sorry, Scott.
You're good.
Oh God. Well. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. I think we're almost at 30 minutes, which we got the 45-minute time limit anyways. What were you saying, though, about the New York ICU beds?
Yes, sir. I'm not a huge fan of Governor Cuomo or his little brother. He has a younger brother as as my grandfather used to put it, Communist News Network. He's a anchor on there. But, yeah, real quick, he had mentioned about how there's 53,000 available hospital beds in just New York alone, and of those 53,000, there are 3,000 of those are ICU beds. Now, keep in mind, ICU beds are the ones that are the most crucial, and of those, 85% have already taken up. And he said it would take up to 3 years to build a hospital. Now, that's a little long if you think, considering not only in the beginning of this podcast I mentioned this could be gone. Hopefully, it is by this summer. But also the point that Mickey was making about from that documentary video we had seen, that they had one built in like 2 weeks over there in China. So something doesn't sound right there. But yeah, the fact is the ventilators are what they need. Case in point, the ventilators are what they need. And the ventilators are only in the ICU beds. And ICU beds are 85%, that's just in New York alone, are already taken up. And so we'll be coming to a problem issue there is... well, where are the beds going to come from? That's where you're talking about the camps.
Yes. So, like I said, I urge you guys to look up Georgia Guidestones, FEMA plastic coffins, and FEMA Walmart camps. Just look into it. I'm not telling you what to think one way or another. I'm leading you to the information for you to draw your own conclusion. Another thing is like I just see this right here. Walmart cuts hours at 24-hour stores.
Yes, sir.
And other locations. So talking about the economy and talking about people going into chaos. Oh, and here's what I was telling you and our other buddy about on the phone. When there's chaos like this and people they can't go to work which means they can't make money, which means they can't pay the rent, which means that, you're basically going to be on the streets or not have food and